black swan event occurs, and then all of the switches get turned on at once.
We hate the centralized entities now.
In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully prepared for a world that no longer exists.
There's a decentralization, which is like a goal. I don't think it's inevitable. That's something you have to fight for.
How can we start to kind of think about these future technologies in a way that helps us prepare for them? Even people who aren't Christian can recognize that there's going to be some sort of institutional advantage.
Oh yeah, make sure that you're able to accept crypto, and it's like, but we won't actually need it until you actually do.
There's all of these benefits about talking about these things as opposed to just being scared of the future.
Right now, it's a monetized web. We're heading towards a hyper-monetized web where everything's a microtransaction.
Happy belated 4th of July to everybody. Probably should have wished that last week, but we just got so caught up in the rush of what that episode was potentially going to be, and it outperformed my expectations, at least. So we hope everybody can go back and watch that episode if they haven't yet, because what that one was, I don't, that'll be a tough one to beat. But you know what? That's just got to set the bar higher every time, I guess, right?
Yeah, it was super exciting talking about. I think that was our first official AI guest. I know we've talked about AI a few times in the past, but we're gonna have another AI guy in a couple weeks, and we're definitely seeing like a big, I would say, merging between the crypto communities and the AI communities, at least on Twitter. A lot of these conversations are sharing the same space. So yeah, I'm excited to have more AI discussions in the future as well.
Yep. And they're sharing the same space in a way that's not just, so I'm going to invest in something that has AI in the name, and they're going to, but actual conversations are taking place, which is good.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you want, is the conversations. And again, hopefully we can have Mr. Ross on again in the future, Mr. Thacker on in the future. Ross's middle name, my bad. But yeah, he was a great guest, and he has exciting stuff to come. We'll be dropping some more of those clips so that people can watch abridged versions of it. I know we have a couple more that we need to get out there, especially the one where he goes into the black box of AI. So let's get into the news here, though. I know that we didn't talk about this, but this is hysterical because I don't know if you guys remember. The only reason why I'm bringing this up ad hoc here is because Crypto.com made that mistake with giving that one guy too much money. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So they made a mistake where a guy got a deposit of $76,000. So he got like a mistaken deposit of $50,000, and he refused to return it to Crypto.com. And it was
something like he was supposed to get $10 in Bitcoin, and he got 10 Bitcoin. Like I think it was an error like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Crypto.com won the case in arbitration, and the defendant will not only have to refund the initial $50K, but also pay the $26K in legal fees. So I don't know what this guy. If I would, honestly, I wouldn't do anything if I was this guy. I would just sit and like make them take it from me. I don't know if I'm crazy, but I just think this story's kind of funny.
I mean, legally, like if they took him, I don't know. Are they suing him? What's the deal there?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's on Bitcoinist.com. That's where the full story is. I was just on CoinMarketCap, and it led me to the full story. But
I was just gonna say, like, legally, there's no way that he's gonna win that suit. I was just thinking the other day, like, you know, as much as people joke, like, not your keys, not your crypto. Like, I've taken a little bit issue with that, and like if someone steals my crypto, it is my crypto. Like, I get it, but like, I'm definitely going to pursue them to whatever extent of the law. Fair. If like something of mine is stolen. It's not like, you know, these rules get suspended just because we're in blockchain space.
This is hilarious because wasn't the first time they did it either. I heard about the Australian incident where the client or the customer got $6.6 million instead of the $66 she requested, and she had already bought a property by the time crypto.com was coming after her. This apparently has been in crypto.com's MO the past couple of years. So I I don't know, call that bank error in your favor. I don't know what card you need to draw in Monopoly for that, but that's hysterical. The
Yeah,
malfeasance.
the lesson there is, make sure it is yours before you spend it, right? And even then, I imagine the guy who got deposited way too much, the 50,000 or whatever it was. I wonder if it was if it was in Bitcoin. I imagine right now Bitcoin's trading lower than it was when he got it. So, I don't know whether he took profits or not. If he has to give back, I'd be curious to read more on the story. So whether he has to give it back in Bitcoin or in USDC or whatever.
I think it's
no
all
way they're gonna make him give it
no,
back in
because it's in
USDC. That would be a rip off. Like
in the no, it's in the court system now, so everything will be USD. They wouldn't do
no,
the
it has to be Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
if it decreased in value,
if they gave him one Bitcoin, he should have to,
Yeah, if you give me one Bitcoin at 30 grand and it drops to 25K, like, wait, that would actually work in my favor, right?
Yeah, bank error.
If you sold,
no, because I would have to give 30K. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's no way. Like, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Either way, it says
no.
Like I gave you a new car, right? And it devalues in the first week, and then I say, no, you owe me the value of the new car, and it's like, no, let me just give
the price
you
it was back, when I gave it to you. No way.
Okay, Voyager.
Let's see what happens.
Literally what they did is like we will pay you. We will pay you back what the crypto was worth the day that we went insolvent. It's like that's okay. Crazy. That's like and only 30% of that of what you were holding in there. I'm not that I'm not salty. By the way, they still haven't paid anybody back. For the record, even though they said they would this week. Liars. All right. What else happened in the news?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, and I know Connor, you've seen this as well. I thought it was interesting that Taproot Wizards, Udi and Eric, hosted Vitalik on a Twitter Space. I can't remember, yesterday, I think. We're recording this on Friday. It was on Thursday that they hosted him. I only listened to about half of it. I had meetings during the other half of it. But it was just interesting. It was titled "What Bitcoin Can Learn from Ethereum." It's been fun to see all of the different takes on Twitter, especially after the fact. I saw a very praiseworthy comment, but it started with like, as someone from the Ethereum community, I really enjoyed, and so it was like, ooh, wait a minute, like, and then there were a lot of Bitcoin people who were against it, some who were for it, right? Obviously, the space, I think, at the most had like 3,000 listeners. It was listening to the talk. It was interesting because they, I don't know. There are these perspectives, right? Is should Bitcoin ossify, right? The ossification, people talk about it all the time. Like, should it really set in stone as much as it can right now, as soon as possible? Or is there this idea that like every other blockchain is a testing ground for like good features, and Bitcoin should adopt good features that other things have? And so, anyway, I don't know, just to give a very broad perspective. Connor, I don't know if you've seen, or Branden, if you've seen any specific things on either side of that.
Yeah, I just mentioned Chris Black, who we brought up a couple times in the podcast, but he's definitely anti it. I don't know. Like, I feel like I sympathize with both sides sometimes. I see the arguments for both. We're pro Ethereum guys here, at least to the extent that we like, some of these technologies and the exciting things that you can do with smart contracts. So, 2 episodes ago, we did an episode about, why toxic Bitcoin maximalism, is not always the best solution. But I still like super respect what Bitcoin is, and, the standards that the community has held to keep it decentralized and keep it just hard money basically as its use case, instead of kind of diving into this kind of open philosophy debate, which I see happen in Ethereum a lot, which is like, well, we don't, what should be the rules, and what can we do, and like, yeah, should this really, should this be a hard rule? Should immutability really be like the standard? That's going back to like the DAO debate when it got hacked, and Vitalik was basically like, his comments was like, I don't want to like put words in his mouth, but he basically said like, this idea that you can never change anything and it's immutable, like this is kind of silly. Like if there was a hack and something went wrong, like there's nothing to say that we shouldn't, course correct, which is fine, but it becomes a little problematic, if you're going to be creating these decentralized technologies. And then you start to say, well, sometimes it's okay to, reverse, and, who's making those decisions when the sometimes, cases are legitimate enough. So for those reasons, I like what Bitcoin is. And I think, Bitcoin should stay more or less on the path that it has been. I don't want, my money to be confiscated or, manipulated by anybody. So yeah, in that sense, I agree with the Bitcoin maximalists there. But I do think that Bitcoin cannot do everything. So either you are open to some level of second layer activities, which Bitcoin ordinals, the Taproot updates, these people are saying, hey, maybe we can do some other things on Bitcoin. And I think that's okay. And I do think that there's some things they can learn from Ethereum without totally, opening the floodgates. But it's hard to say where those boundaries should be drawn.
We just need more medium of exchange opportunities is essentially what I've been gathering from our podcast the past couple of weeks when we've been having these conversations, and what that looks like. I'm still trying to figure that out, but yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple of sides to that, right? In that it seems like Bitcoin maximalists, the only way to convince them to make a change on Bitcoin would be, if you could somehow make it easier to exchange it, without changing the block size, right? Because we had that debate, 5-6 years ago, right? And so that's kind of the, what started the whole SegWit and Taproot. I think the rationale was that it made transactions more efficient, even slightly more efficient. And so I don't know. I more or less agree with you, Connor. I think if anything, I feel like I sympathize with the Bitcoin builders a bit more. But I agree. I think there's a need for, this immutable, permissionless money, right? Which is what the Bitcoin maximalists want to do. But then I also think that we need to have a decentralized web and be able to do some of the things that, maybe not all the things, but at least some of the things that Ethereum is doing, right? And that could, like, Uniswap, I think, is an incredible platform, right? I don't know what kind of fees they take and what they do with those fees, but this idea of creating this automated market maker, this decentralized exchange, this idea that anybody can create a pair and it is swappable. I don't have to ask anybody's permission. It's like a stock exchange that runs 24/7, right? And so anyway, I don't know. I value enough of those technologies that I think my question to the Bitcoin maximalist would be, do you want this running natively or, on a layer 2 of Bitcoin, and as close to Bitcoin as it can, or are you fine with saying, let's have this in a different system? In which case, yes, then I'd be pro Ethereum. I don't know that I'm pro Ethereum though. I'm pro the stuff Ethereum's doing, but I'm more pro Bitcoin, and I'd like to see, and there are people who talk already who, there's like 1 or 2 BIPs, Bitcoin improvement protocols, that would be, I don't know, we could argue how simple the change is to the base layer, but it would allow for, more trustless layer 2s, and so it's not like, smart contracts and stuff happening on, Bitcoin itself, but, an easier in and out of a layer 2 that can then, offload some of this functionality that we want to see.
I'm Matt. As you're saying that, I think I fall in your camp too, where I like the things that I can do on Ethereum, but I like Bitcoin just a little bit better because of there's the galvanization that it's instilled in the market in terms of stability in projects, and for people that want to invest in some of those smaller projects, it's oftentimes dependent on how stable is Bitcoin going to be, because that will determine how much development goes on as a whole in the space. It's not, and it's funny because the Bitcoin maximalists hate that, but there's a reason why Luna's philosophy was the year that they went under, they were going to invest in a ton of Bitcoin. Why? Because Bitcoin is the most stable. Yeah, Uniswap. The more I've been diving into this, it's an incredible tool. And Ethereum is just kind of becoming a necessary evil, where like gasoline. For my car, you need Ethereum to be able to drive on Web3, essentially. And that's just, I mean, not saying that that's what I'm noticing is like, why would I hold on to more Ethereum than I need to for just driving on Web3, so to speak? That's the mentality that I've been kind of, as I've been getting more mature with this stuff. It's been like, why would I go right into ETH when I should probably go into something else that isn't as high of gas fees, and also I'm already using Ethereum for gas fees, so why would I want, you get what I'm saying? It's like all of those things, and it's just it's interesting how you mature in this space and you learn more, and it's just it's yeah.
That's like 100% like my mentality is just like, because this is what the Bitcoin maximalists always say. They're like, Ethereum is not hard money, it's not sound money, and they have all these proofs to basically show you why Ethereum is not as good money as Bitcoin. And it's like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't think of Ethereum as money at all. Like, it has, and I argue with these people sometimes on Twitter, and like I just try to like, ram home this point, which is like, I'm not like in Ethereum because I think it is better than Bitcoin at being money at all. Like, I would rather keep my money in Bitcoin and just have the Ethereum that I need to do what I need to do on Ethereum, because I can't do that on Bitcoin. And it's just hard having these conversations with these people sometimes, because there's just so much on the money aspect. And it's like, money isn't everything. Like, we need to do other things as well. And so until you can give me a viable alternative, like, I think Ethereum is necessary. So it is kind of interesting to your point, Matt. Like, could there be a second layer that is basically what Ethereum does, but just uses Bitcoin as the gas fees?
Yeah,
that would be super interesting if we could actually build that. And I mean, maybe even the Bitcoin maximalists would allow that because it's not happening on main chain.
Yeah.
But I don't know all the technical stuff that would have to go, because Ethereum is a base layer. So you're basically saying, let's build a second layer that acts like what Ethereum is as a base layer. I don't know, but
and not to get too into the technicals, I don't even know all the technicals. I think if you want to read into it, I think it's BIP 300 and 301 would both allow for certain things to be able to be built on Bitcoin. It would allow, so smart contracts actually exist on Bitcoin. I don't know how much we all know about that, but I could time lock an amount of Bitcoin in a smart contract, right? So like, hey, this can't be accessed for, so many blocks. But that's a smart contract, right? It has a certain code. It's not Turing complete. It's not like a full interpretive language, but they're like so many codes, op codes that you could use with Bitcoin. And like a multi-sig works the same way, right? It says, hey, we're putting it in this wallet and you need 2 of 3 wallets to access it. And so anyway, the one thing we're missing is I think you need, with either 300 or 301, you need an opcode to allow for people to like be able to withdraw Bitcoin from this smart contract, but like be able to like withdraw how much they put in, right? So like if I have, and this is how the layer 2s work on Ethereum, right? There's a smart contract which somehow deals with all this stuff, right? But I deposit my ETH to get onto Arbitrum, right? And then I can, even if Arbitrum is blocking me, like from ETH, I can withdraw my ETH back into my account.
So
And so
can I?
it's something like that. That's the missing point. And once you have that, I think from the layer 2 side, you can make it EVM. You could, make it proof of stake. I don't know. I imagine that the possibilities are, I mean, maybe not endless, but it opens up a whole lot more. But I think after the Taproot stuff and all these ordinals, I think Bitcoin Core and these Bitcoin maxis are a lot more hesitant to approve of something.
Yeah.
The project that I talked to you guys about sometimes that I've been in for a while, Tectum, they took some Bitcoin as like for like fractional Bitcoin as like gas to convert Bitcoin into their native token, and they called it Dust. So that was interesting. So I have seen examples of it used before where Bitcoin is the gas. um, I don't know how they did that. That's why I kind of want to get those guys on the show to talk about crypto as a whole, as a medium of exchange and what they're doing, and just understand how some of that stuff worked when they were doing that initial seed investing back when the project was $1. And now it's interesting though because I invested I invested in that project in Bitcoin, and now I'm taking out my profits on Uniswap. I've just never seen anything like that before. And it's Bitcoin Maxi's probably gonna hate that, but if it works, it works. I'm not gonna question it, So that's just some stuff that I'm like, something's working there. I'm not sure what, but they might have just built a bridge that I didn't even know was possible. So.
Yeah.
I really want to have those guys on to ask them about it. Hopefully they can come on soon.
Anyway, I know how easy it is for us to kind of devolve the conversation into Bitcoin discussion. Any other news? Or do we want to move on to?
I feel like we should just briefly cover at least the BlackRock, Larry Fink's appearance. I forget, it was either on like Fox Business or like CNBC. It was one of these shows, but it's kind of the news this week, and what's kind of kept, I would say, crypto in this bull run is this is the BlackRock ETF originally, right? With the Bitcoin, the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, and so BlackRock's obviously had a stake in crypto for some time. Big investors with, USDC, which joint partnership, some relationship there with Coinbase. So they've had their eye on crypto and Bitcoin for a while. But Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, for a long time was actually anti-crypto. So we don't really know a whole lot about BlackRock, and we've even discussed this, I think, on the past episode or the one before. But just like, how, what are BlackRock's actual interests? And it's kind of hard to really, judge who they are. But that being said, Larry Fink basically went on the show and it's like, the way I see it, like crypto is the future. Which is basically a total 180 from his previous position. And he said something really interesting, which is actually what you brought up, Matt, is he sees crypto as like the future of like the stock market, basically, and how all these things, basically what they've been doing with ETFs and stocks, all that's going to be tokenized and it's going to be on the blockchain, and it's going to open up basically trading and markets like to a truly like global economy in a sense. Mm-hmm. So obviously very bullish for crypto. At the same time, this is BlackRock we're talking about, and how much can we really trust, what they're doing. And then one other aspect to this is just bringing up like discussions that they're having with politicians about these types of things. And usually that means, okay, this group is going to the SEC and like, having these discussions about whether or not they're going to approve, these things. But just given what has come out about BlackRock in the past and whatnot, it sounds a little bit more like we're having these discussions where we're basically telling these politicians, what kind of policies need to get passed. So not to draw this in a conspiracy direction, but so it is just an open conversation. Like, is BlackRock good? Obviously, it's good for the markets. It's basically sent Bitcoin on a bull run, but do we really want this in the space, and how much can we trust their efforts? So
how do you politely tell somebody what their future is going to be without telling them what their future is going to be? That's basically what BlackRock does in a very I don't say maniacal, but it's definitely persuasive. So
Machiavellian.
yep, that's the word. That's the word I was
There we
looking
go.
for. Perfect adjective. Yeah.
It's good. But I think that confirms that at least someone from BlackRock is probably Larry Fink himself. Subscribes to us and watches our listens to our
100%.
podcast, right? Because where else would he have heard? You know,
We've been setting some trends lately. Not
Token
not
it.
not calling us like fortune tellers or anything, but I've noticed that we're ahead of certain trends like Fed Now and like other things like that, and I'm like, man, maybe we're too early to things. Maybe we're too woke. That's
you're
that's
too in
the
tune. Yeah,
yeah, that's the thought. So just a
that's
month too early to the trends and the SEO overlords. So
yeah.
I don't know. What are we talking about today?
So I think our discussion is what is Web3? And super interesting conversation. Obviously, we're in Web3. Probably a lot of our listeners are familiar with this term by now. It's somewhat synonymous with crypto and with blockchain and with basically everything that podcast is about. That being said, we thought it would be a super interesting conversation to just kind of get back to a little bit of base layer, I guess, for lack of a better word, and ask ourselves what exactly is Web3, especially in light of last week's discussion talking about AI, talking about virtual reality, and all these things. So, yeah, what is the internet going to look like? What does it mean to be Web3? And is Web3 really one thing? Is it Ethereum? Is it blockchain? Or can we think of this a little broader and talk about how Web3 is really just an evolution of a natural evolution of how technology changes and how, basically everything around us changes. We make this mistake so much in life thinking things are going to continue the way they always have been. And that's never the case. Things always change, things always evolve. So Google, Amazon, Facebook, Meta, these are the big players today, but they're not going to be the big players in the future because things change. So yeah, what does that future look like? What is Web3? And then also just a little informational for some of our viewers who maybe aren't as familiar with the term. What does Web3 mean in the blockchain space? So yeah, the whole conversation. What is Web3? So I don't know. Maybe we just want to start there and ask ourselves, what is our personal definition of Web3? Matt, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah. To start off, in the crypto and the blockchain space, a lot of people look at, Web3, right? So there's Web. Obviously, there has to be a 1 and a 2 before there's a 3, and so in very broad strokes, we can look at, people like to say Web 1 was read only, right? This is, very initial internet. This is people sharing, documents and research papers
Like
with
static
each other,
web pages.
and static web pages, right? So being able to share files, right? We have our computers are connected, and or static web pages, right? HTML, and then Web 2 is read write, and so this is a blog where you can, or a forum even would be like maybe the initial part there where we're actively communicating with each other. And obviously the height of this would be social media, a platform like we're on right now, or Zoom or Skype, where you're very live interacting with people. Gosh, I can't remember what I was or no, this was this our podcast with Father Ian, where he mentioned, no, I was maybe probably some other podcast I was listening to, but someone was talking about, correct me, I'm not sure whether it was with us or with someone else, and they were talking about how, like, before YouTube was even a thing, they there's a trailer of a movie and they had to like download the video file and then load it and then watch it, because like the technology wasn't even there for YouTube to like live, to watch such a large file live.
It kind of sounds like what we were just talking about with Father Ian. I think he was talking about Deezer though.
Do you
And
want to know where? Do you want to know where I watched movie trailers before there was a YouTube?
Where?
Yahoo Movies. Yahoo
Really? Okay.
before all of these like websites and apps that we're familiar with, Yahoo was the
Yeah.
hub for everything. It was the first way we could you could chat with somebody like via online chat. It was the first place you could play fantasy sports.
AOL
It's
didn't predate
no
them in terms of chat.
Yahoo.
AIM.
I believe Yahoo had the chat thing before AOL.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
AOL
From
was
what
big
some
on
high
that, huh?
school teachers told me, they remember using Yahoo Chat before AOL was even a thing.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
yeah,
I
I
never
mean,
used any of that stuff.
fantasy
My mom wouldn't
football
let me
on
get on the
online
internet.
on the internet. Fantasy football came from Yahoo. So Yahoo was the origins of a
Interesting.
lot of this internet stuff where it interact with things like Yahoo Movies. I remember watching movie trailers on Yahoo Movies all
Yeah.
the time. So it's funny
Interesting.
that you say that.
But even
It's
then
reminiscent
it
about that.
was, kind of, yeah, even that was kind of, streaming it live, right? Or the same way
Yeah,
we watch Netflix now, right? And so, but we went from files, you had whatever. Anyway, so you go from read to read write, where we're now in communication. And then Web3 is read write own, is what people keep talking about. And this could be in a crypto sense, right? I can own things in my crypto wallet. I can own, whatever these NFTs. I can actually take control of my money, right? E-commerce existed before, right? And you have PayPal and things like that kind of hold your money for you. But this is a way that, like, no, now I am in charge of my stuff.
Yeah.
And so, in a slightly broader sense, so to broaden it a little bit, people and some crypto people talk about owning data, but I think people were talking about owning your own data and stuff, even not in a crypto sense, like before crypto kind of did Web3, and people talk about Web 3.0, which is a slightly different discussion, but yeah, to own your data and to be in control of some of these things that you're interacting with. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. To me, I think that's, anytime someone says Web3, I like to think of that. I'm taking ownership. It's a decentralized web is the other term a lot of people use, in that, I'm able to control at least certain things. Hopefully more as we go on.
Dapps is another one
But yeah,
too.
decentralized apps. So
What about you, Brandon? What's a good definition of Web3 for you?
I like to see just some like connection to blockchain essentially, where we're talking about like kind of a network where we are able to do different forms of electronic interchanges, whether that's documents, um, money, invoices, messages, etc. Except we're channeling them through a network as opposed to just peer to peer. So essentially, there's kind of more of you have like there's traceability components to it, so that you have the record there. Um, and then of course, like in the decentralized options of that, you have the ability to you have your unique wallet address or what like your unique code or combination, but you're able to kind of track that, see what it's doing, or look at some of that unique um some of that unique transacting going on. Like I look at some of these entities that have this sort of in a modern sense, like Commerce Hub, for example, where they're just connecting a lot of companies' products with respective industries that are using them, and it's like holy smokes, like to have the wheels of that, like right now they're on top in terms of just connecting uh business to business, but eventually it'll be the next thing after Commerce Hub is gone. It'll be something else, and so on and so forth. And so I think that those are just kind of the nascent stages of it, and I don't think they like calling it Web3 or blockchain in that world of supply chain, but to be frank, it truly has a lot of the components that you're talking about. It's just not decentralized. It's all housed by these entities that own it, in terms of how that all goes. But it connects a lot of businesses with a lot of end users, and it's made a lot of people a lot of money, and it's been interesting engaging for what I do with my day job, at least.
Yeah, I feel like there's kind of this old guard on the internet. I mean, you just look back at like sometimes they call themselves like cypherpunks or whatever, but it's just this idea of like what WikiLeaks was doing, what or if you see like Matrix and you have all these hackers on the internet like doing this stuff and it's like uncensorable, like uncontainable, like exposing basically, all the institutions and stuff that we deal with in this world and in a sphere that's public and open source, right? And so that's kind of like a vision of the web when Web 1, Web 2 was just being birthed, and it kind of got taken over in a way by these big tech platforms because like the technology, the data processing, the storage just wasn't to the point where you could really truly have these peer-to-peer ecosystems. So you kind of needed this, these big institutional players to come in that could host all the data and do all the processing power. So it never really was peer-to-peer in that sense. It was like peer to network, to peer, and the network being this kind of third-party player who could tamper with your data, like they do now, and censor it and all these types of things. So in my like mind, Web3 is in some sense like returning back to that original vision of what the web was really supposed to be, like truly peer-to-peer technology. And so we see that specifically with blockchain being that the network itself still exists, but it's no longer in the hands of any centralized player. It's like truly like a public square, a public space that is open source. I mean, I think you brought some of these things up, but like that's what's kind of unique about blockchain specifically is not only is it open source, but there's traceability, I would say transparency in that sense. So these things aren't just being done undercover in the same, way that maybe things were done in previous peer-to-peer systems like with torrenting, but it's transparent. But in a broader like Web3 sense, it's like, yeah, truly decentralized internet. Like this is what we thought the internet was going to be. And, we're finally being able to realize that vision because the technology is better. And not only is the technology better, but now all these other things that we thought about and hypothesized about, and some like Berner Lee, I think we want to bring up with Web 3.0 and maybe some of these distinctions there. But the reason some of those things didn't get off the ground with the semantic web and Internet of Things and whatnot, it's just because the technology wasn't there. We didn't have the processing power. We didn't have the data storage. And now with AI coming, to play, it's like, oh, we actually do have this technology now and blockchain as well. And so it's like, can we do this? And what is the web actually going to look like in the future? So to me, Web3 should just be the next evolution of the internet. And we don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to incorporate all these technologies, but it's going to be, it's going to be an evolution in a sense.
What I notice is I see a lot of manufacturers and companies, they get all this technology and they try to like get it up and running really quickly, but IT departments can't plug it in to make it work yet. Like it's like they're too busy focusing on the issue log instead of like getting everything updated to make things move. And obviously the bigger the organization, the more difficult some of these things can be from time to time because archaic technology, etc. But I feel like we like get stuck in kind of this like 3 to 5 year waiting period, and then all of a sudden black swan event occurs, and then all of the switches get turned on at once. Like look at what happened with COVID basically. Like we were just kind of like la 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 la, like whatever, and go into work, do your thing. Wouldn't it be cool to work from home someday? Yeah, but that'll never happen. Then all of a sudden basically it becomes a requirement, and all of a sudden these products and things that we didn't anticipate needing to connect ourselves to our work, to the people that we worked with, to our families. We didn't know what a Zoom was. I didn't necessarily know what a docking station was until until COVID, because then it basically became a requirement. So it's like all of these things that we don't know about, and it's like we're waiting for whatever has to happen next to turn on all the switches, and then it'll be like, all right, here's a go. It's like how can we like move? How can we progress? Because I do think that this Web3 blockchain stuff is that next thing, and it's like we're just waiting for the next like, oh crap, like we have to do this now or else everything is gonna go, to the woodshed. It's like what you get what I'm saying? Like, can we just be proactive for once as just like a world? I don't know. Is that I'm probably speaking things that are gonna
I
put
feel like Matt has something to say,
target
but
on my back. But yeah.
But I love this quote by Eric Hoffer. I think it's Eric Hoffer. I don't know too much about him. He's a American philosopher, but I do know he's an atheist. I don't like that. But he was. He's dead now. But anyway, the quote is, and I might not say it exactly the way he said it, but in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully prepared for a world that no longer exists.
Interesting.
And to me, like that's perfect for what Web3 is. It's like you can learn everything you need to know about Web2 and about the way things currently are, but that's not the way they're going to be in the future. So it's time to be a learner. It's time to be open to new ideas, AI, Web3, all of these things. And we don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to look like something. So be prepared to learn.
Growth mindset.
Yeah. Exactly. No, you summed it up better than I could. I was going to say people stagnate, right? There's an inertia, and there's a social inertia to how people react to change, and it has to happen all at once, right? People aren't proactive in a lot of things.
It's the baby boomers' fault.
Your dad was a business guy, right? Harvard Business or something. You did chemistry, right? Or
I did chemistry. Yeah.
You did chemistry. Okay. I was going to say, in a lot of business courses, it's always brought up this book. What is it? Where is the cheese or something? Have you heard this book? Does anybody know this?
No.
Okay. It's always brought up. It's this book about basically based on the idea that there's these mice, and they're in their little maze trying to find the cheese, and just that you can never just stagnate and be like, oh, I found it, because the cheese isn't going to be there forever. So that's what they always use, and they talk about to kind of drive into like business professionals, that like you have to always be open to change.
Yeah. So no, that's good. I gosh, not to try to get too meta here right now, but the Web3, it's tough because it seems like there's two different visions out there, and maybe it's just two different ways to look at history, right? Is this a Renaissance event where we say, Renaissance, they claim that title, right? And they said, oh, that medieval time was garbage, but we're going back to the classical period, right? To say what we're saying here, right? Is this a reaction to Web 2? Is Web 3 a reaction to Web 2 and saying, hey, we want to go back to how decentralized we were originally, or is it an evolution, right? And it might be both, right? It might be, in some regards, we're going to say, hey, let's try to move away from central institutions as much as we can, but I think the inevitable one is this evolution idea, right? That because technology evolves, right, we will, even if we don't get decentralization, we have AI right now. We're going to get even better AI. We're going to get augmented reality, virtual reality, and things like that. Like we're gonna, in a sense, the next step of the web will also be doing all the stuff that the current web is doing in a better way, right? Social media will, and it's hard to say, right? Because again, you brought up the pandemic. I was teaching during the pandemic. It was awful. We were so disconnected. But that's what
it forced you to turn on a bunch of switches, though, that you had the capabilities of doing, but you just never had to go that way before.
Yes, but my point is especially teaching. You felt incredibly disconnected, right,
Yes.
to all the students, to the class, to the community,
Yeah.
right, and but like it will get better. I imagine, I would bet on it that people will there will be technological advancements such that people will feel more connected in online spaces to each other than they currently do. Maybe it still won't be. It'll approach a limit of like, peer-to-peer human interaction in real time. But and this is what Meta is trying to do right now, right, with their virtual reality, with their spaces where they're saying, hey, virtually, we're going to put you in the same space so that you can interact with each other more. And so I'm rambling a bit, but I do think there's two threads here, and it might be the difference between Web3 and Web 3.0, but there's a decentralization, which is like a goal, that like we want this. We really, we hate the centralized entities now. But I don't think it's inevitable. I think that's something you have to fight for. But I do think the things that are inevitable are AI, AR, VR. Yeah, AI, AR, and VR, right? Augmented or virtual
augmented
reality.
Okay, I was thinking,
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Hey, those are no. Augmented or virtual reality is inevitable. AI is inevitable. I don't know what else. Internet of Things. I don't know. Well, we could argue about that. I think that might be one where you might draw a connection. And people, so people like to, and we mentioned people in Twitter and in these spaces are discussing, AI and crypto. And I think there can be a connection between them, but like it's not obvious and it's not required, right? We could have really good AI without AR and without crypto. We could have, really good AR without AI or without crypto, like each of these can independently do what they do. There are really cool things that could happen if we have really good blockchain and really good AI, and we'll have, interesting use cases coming out of that. But, like they don't rely on each other. They're not, they're two different paths. Right.
I think on some level, like it would be hard for us to disassociate the idea of Web3 from this idea of a decentralized web. So to those ends, like AI is not bringing the decentralized web. I can't really think of any aspects of it that is, at least. It's a technology improvement, but it's not, the data, the processing is all happening in these very big supercomputers, right? And even just like the content generation is not leading, at most it's making like the human element obsolete. It's not making all the other aspects of the web that are centralized obsolete.
It's repurposing the human element.
It's repurposing the human element. Yeah, I don't see it like replacing Twitter.
Yeah, it's going to constantly be repurposing it. Just
maybe, I mean, to some level, like it's replacing Google, but I just wouldn't call it like a decentralized web at all. Mm-mm. But that's only if you think of Web 3.0 as the decentralized web, which we would like to see. But I think on some level, you have to recognize that Web 3.0 is just going to be the next iteration. Like Web 2 wasn't decentralized. It was just building on Web 1, and it was a very new experience. Like we're going to have a new experience. And, the more we can push these things towards decentralized aspects, the better. But, I really do think we have to think of Web 3 as just the next evolution. And how can we not predict what's going to be, but in some levels, like how can we start to kind of game theory and think about these future technologies in a way that helps us prepare for them? Because, one, there's going to be obviously financial benefits to people who are early. There's going to be technological benefits to people who can kind of take advantage of these technologies earlier. But I mean, we're a Christian podcast, and I think even people who aren't Christian can recognize that there's going to be some sort of institutional advantage to institutions and people who can kind of recognize these technologies earlier and be involved, with the building of them. And then we can also influence like the way they develop and hopefully push them to the decentralized web. So there's all of these benefits about talking about these things as opposed to just being scared of the future. So yeah, that's the only like conversation I feel like I want to bring to Web3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, especially your last point, I think what we can do is while all of these things are being built, right, while AI is being built, while AR, while blockchain and all these things are being built out, we can try to influence it. And
Yeah.
we might, and this might be an interesting conversation. One is, the school of decentralization, but I think we could also maybe further that or supplement that with, what does a Christianized web look like, and how can we try to influence that? I do want to add one of the terms you dropped earlier, the semantic web. This was kind of an old idea, and it's interesting. I don't think I've seen anyone talk about it recently, although we've, in some regards, reached it. This idea of the semantic web is can machines understand it, in some sense, can machines understand natural language, right? Semantics. Can they understand semantics? Can they understand I'm talking? What am I talking about? What do I actually
Like,
want?
can they have, or can they have risibility even? Like a sense of
So
humor?
risibility would be something else, but this idea of
Okay.
the semantic web. This idea of the semantic web is that like, can the machine? Sure, yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to understand everything that I'm saying, but so a little bit of history, right? So coding, actually programming, there's tends to be a trade-off in like the language between like efficiency and like human readability, right?
Sure.
And so like, yes, this is more human readable. This is, I can understand what I'm putting on here. I can understand what it's doing, but it's going to act slower. And then, so we have tools right now that are, built in a way. It's like Google is almost semantic, right? Because I type in a thing and it's able to search across the web and give me things that I want to know, right? But then AI is doing this at an even better rate right now, right? In ChatGPT, right? I can say, I could ask a question and it like Google sometimes gets this wrong, right? You'll like search something and it'll show you like the opposite thing because it has the same key terms, right? So like I was Google searching articles for this conversation and I said Web3 without crypto, and all I saw, all the articles were Web3 and crypto. It didn't understand that I was trying to say no, Web3, but don't include crypto. Where AI, ChatGPT would, right? And if ChatGPT, I don't know the extent of some of the plugins. I know Bing is trying to do a search that's augmented with AI as well. But as that improves, right, we'll be able to, the machine, the more that the machine can, understand whatever's going on in the black box, what I'm asking it to do and what is on all of these other web pages and feed it back to me. I think I'll have to dig more into this term semantic web, but I think we're pretty much there.
Yeah, we're like there. And it was funny because I think we shared that article and it's like they were talking. It's like, yeah, it never became a reality because the data processing just isn't there and blah, 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 blah. I think this was like 2020 or something. And it's like, okay, 3 years later, like we're there.
Oops.
I guess Web 3.0 is coming back.
Yeah, no, but you understand what I'm saying too. We're back to my point. Like we spend so much time filibustering and getting everything like we like acquiring everything, and then it's like, oh shoot, like time to turn on all the switches, otherwise we never will. And it's like, how much stuff gets left behind because we just like are like, yeah, we don't need to tap into the full capability of it. It's like, oh yeah, make sure that you're able to accept crypto, and it's like, but we won't actually need it until you actually do. It's like, that's the stuff that I'm trying to like just say, hey, like, can we like at least like test it out to make sure this works before like that's my thought process is like, it's frustrating.
It kind of reminds me like back in like business school, we would kind of make fun of Tesla because they weren't profitable. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is never going to take off kind of thing.
Now who's
And it's
laughing?
like, oh, now it did. So, but I mean, it's just similar in the sense that it's like, it takes these technologies time to cook sometimes, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And, and people want instant gratification.
Well,
But, there's benefits to kind of.
Didn't Ford buy like every electric vehicle patent so that it could never get like developed?
I think that was like a long running like conspiracy.
Okay, is that a joke? Okay,
but,
I don't know, but
I don't know if it's a joke. It could be real, but I'm saying that I don't know
I
how
just
much
heard
truth there is.
something about that. So, and I was
there's
like,
always
it'd be
like the
funny
thing
if it
about
did.
like somebody who like drove home a Ford and it never required gas, and finally they called Ford and like, man, I haven't filled this up in like a month. And then like the Ford mechanics came back and like tampered with the car while the guy wasn't home, and then he shows up and like chases him off, and then ever since then he's been having to fill up gas, and it's like, oh, this tech, they're hiding this from us. But
that's so funny. I've never heard that. I'm
you never heard that one?
Detroit.
That was like one of those email chain
Hilarious.
threads, which I haven't gotten an email chain letter in like forever, but that was one of them that was going around.
Like, hey, let's bring that back. We're talking about bringing stuff back. Those are fun. I felt connected to people when they copy and pasted something.
Or the text ones. Oh, I just saw the stupid Facebook ones. They're like, if you don't repost this, you're gonna have to pay $4.99 for your account. And then I look up like, is this actually a thing? And it's like, only if you want like a check mark or whatever. And I'm like, see, it's not actually a thing. But I do see those on Facebook from time to time. I'm like, really? Like, we're still doing this? But
and this is just an interesting, more of a maybe cultural part of the internet that I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on, but I've been thinking a bit about, and one of my worries going into Web3, right, especially if the own is emphasized, is that we're already kind of pushing the internet into like a hyper monetization thing, right? It maybe generally in the culture, right? People want to, there's this idea of having a side hustle and things like that, right? But because it's been successful in some places, Elon Musk has introduced monetization on Twitter, right? And if you are, your tweet gets so many views, right, he'll give you a cut of the advertising revenue. It had been happening on TikTok, on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
things like that. But it's. And this just made me think about it, right? Because the old, copy and paste emails, forward this to so many people. It was a social phenomenon, right? And nowadays, I get so much spam, and it's always like, a phishing website, and it's always, it's like someone trying to scam me or trying to promote something so that they get money, promote their page, and hey, subscribe to my Patreon, so whatever else, and it's I don't know, I mean, maybe it's nostalgia, right? But like, is there an old version of the web that was more social, and are we
I see what you mean.
Heading towards like right now it's a monetized web? Are we heading towards a hyper monetized web where everything's a microtransaction? Anything you do on the internet, I'm doing it so that I can make pennies off of it.
I think there was an element of that, and that's probably like my biggest drawback or complaint about crypto and blockchain technology in general. It's just that it completely relies on monetization. But I think other aspects of that, as far as like Twitter monetizing things and adding all these monetization aspects, it's kind of a solution to the Web 2 problem, which is these companies had to make money, and they made money by giving you these services for free and then selling your data. So now, if you want to preserve your data in a Web 2 world, well, we need to monetize in some other way, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the majority of that is more of a solution to a Web 2 problem. And I think with what Web 3 is allowing us to do, specifically with blockchain, is there's a monetization aspect, but you're really just paying the root like cost of whatever the transaction is. just basically network gas fees, right? Like this is just what the data costs to transact. And so it does remove actually in a sense the profit incentive for a lot of these things, which drives, like in true economic fashion, it drives prices to the actual cost of what it costs, right? Because there's nobody that's trying to like make a buck basically on market inefficiencies, or some sort of competitive pricing process. Economics is complicated. I'm not going to say that this is a solution for everything. I'm not one of these super big free market people that thinks that like the free market is going to solve everything. But there is a cost to data. There is a cost to compute, and somebody's going to have to pay that. So in a very short sense, like we have to accept an amount of that. But yeah, I don't like the super profit incentives to crypto. So it's kind of a dueling battle there. I agree.
All right. I want to bring up the culture thing. I thought that was kind of interesting. As I was thinking about it,
Absolutely.
Whatever, just how everything's shifting. If we want to wrap things up, any final thoughts from everyone?
Nothing too crazy. Just we're excited to bring more guests. Been getting in touch with a lot of people from a lot of different places, which has been cool. It's just a matter of getting some responses from some people, and hopefully we can get some cool episodes out for everybody in the future. Not that you don't like hearing us talk, but it's when we can bring those more in tune subject matter experts that makes an episode really pop, like last week. So hopefully we can continue to pursue those engaging episodes and just come up with more interesting topics based on what comes up in the news, based on stuff that we've even been just thinking about and talking about on our own Discord. So other than that, though, we just appreciate everybody watching us when they take the time. We hope that what we share is somewhat insightful. And if you're not following us on Twitter, it's down in the description. So give us a follow, and just comment on some stuff or tweet at us if you want us to talk about something else that kind of intersects this world of Christian worldview and crypto and Web3. So that would be really cool if we could get some engagement from people just in terms of how we're doing. Feedback is appreciated, of course. So like, comment, review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe wherever podcasts are found. This is the Crypto Conversion Podcast, and we hope you all have a blessed week, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.